Welcome to another episode of Through the Web podcast.
Yes, we are back.
We are back in the studio.
Back in business.
I'm your host, Tawsif.
And I'm Dagogo.
And it's episode 15.
Uh-huh.
It's been a few weeks. We haven't seen each other for good reasons too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll start off with you. How was your, not week, but weeks?
Yeah, it was good. It was very interesting. There's a bit of a story with the travel. So for those of you who don't know, I was away in Amsterdam for an event. I got nominated for an award, essentially. So I guess starting off, the trip didn't get off to a good start because from Perth, I was flying with Qatar Airways and they completely butchered everything. So they overbooked the flight. So I had to kind of, stay and wait around the airport to see when the next flight would be. And it ended up being like 5 hours later. So this was like 2 a.m. And then they said, we'll book you into a hotel. So it was supposed to be going from Perth to Qatar and then Qatar to Amsterdam. But they couldn't figure out an easier way. So it was with Singapore Airlines that they managed to get us on. And it went from Perth to Singapore to France to Amsterdam. Wow. And there was a pretty long layover in Singapore and a really long layover in France. And the France one was overnight. So they said there'll be some people there waiting for you and you'll be all sorted. You'll get a accommodation. So there was actually a few of us who were stranded at that point. So yeah, we were kind of talking. We're like, okay, that would be fine. So essentially got to Singapore and that was all good. And then went to France. And mind you, this is, 20 hours of flying at this point. So get to France, it's midnight, and then get off the plane. And then there's this guy who is from Qatar Airways who's like, he had a sign and everything. And then I was like, this is good. So they actually organized this. And he was like, very little English, simple English, go to train station, go lift level 5. And then I was like, what? And then he repeats it and it's like simple English. And I was like, okay. And then he had like a little thing with the hotel written on it with the phone number. So I was like, okay, sweet. So when I was at the baggage carousel, I met, there was a couple that was stranded with me from Perth who was also on the overbooked flight. So we were all talking. We're like, did you understand what he said? And then they were like, not really, but let's just wander around and try and find it. So we ended up doing that. So we got to the kind of taxi rank in just outside the airport. This would have been midnight by this stage. And we're like, okay, I think we're supposed to wait here. And then so the van, well, actually before this, there was this guy that was just screaming. He was going nuts, just screaming in French and like.
Just outside the airport?
Yeah. This was, at midnight screaming and just like at no one, talking to himself and everything. Like, So then, eventually in about 15 minutes, our thing came. We're just asking every car, like, are you going to this hotel? And then we like, no. And then the right one came. We're like, okay, good, let's go. So then we get in the taxi. Well, it was kind of like a shuttle, which was booked by Qatar Airways. Remember this? Qatar Airways booked this shuttle. So we drive 15 minutes. We get to the hotel. And then I go up to the counter and we're like, there's been a mistake. Well, not a mistake. There's been an issue, and Qatar Airways has booked this hotel for us. And then I was like, yeah, it's booked through the airline. And then the guy at the counter was like, what airline? I don't understand. What airline are you talking about? And I was like, I explained it again. And I was like, oh, well, here's the passport. Just check the name. It should be there. And then it's like, nope. No, no name under this. And then the couple that were with me, who also, came outside the airport and everything, they asked the same question. And then it was like, no rooms, all booked. All rooms are booked. Every hotel around here is booked. And then we're like, what? So then we search up and then whatever. So yeah, Qatar Airways didn't even book the hotel for us. So
you sure you went to the right hotel?
Yeah,
though, when
we checked. Right, phone number, hotel thing it was all the same. So we called up Qatar Airways and they were like, we don't know what's going on. And then they, we got transferred around from different people, and then eventually they're like, we can't do anything. So it was like 1 a.m. We're just outside this hotel in France, and we're like, what do we do? Like, what are we supposed to do now? So we had no option but to go back to the airport, and essentially we just looked around for some more places if there was anywhere to stay, but that was all booked out as well. So we're just walking around, and I kind of gave up. So the couple, I was like, you guys go on. I'm just gonna try and sleep on the floor here, and then so I didn't really sleep at all. But then later on, I tried to go and find another place, and then I saw them on the floor as well sleeping. So I was like, they didn't make it. So so it was like a horrible horrible experience.
And then when was your flight after? From
So
there
that was about 8 a.m. was the
so
flight.
so basically the whole night you had to just stay up and go. Oh God,
Yeah, it was terrible.
it's crazy because I've heard about stories of being flights being overbooked in the US a lot,
Right.
especially in the domestic airways. Because apparently it's a technique of
Yeah.
making more money in some cases, or in some cases people not showing up.
Yeah.
But for international flights, especially out of Perth, Australia, this is the first instance I've heard about that. So
Yeah, I was talking to my dad, and he kind of explained like in the way that makes the most sense. So essentially, they have it's like almost mathematically, like I think it's like 1.3% of people who say they're going to be on the flight aren't.
Yeah.
So they kind of take that into account and kind of play their luck and say, hey, like we'll be able to get a full flight anyway if we overbook. But the thing is, because consumer behavior has changed, like everyone wants to fly now, so they got caught with their pants down essentially.
Right.
So I think that's what.
yeah,
happened.
because right now, because of coronavirus and the whole pandemic, people want making sure that they're getting on those flights.
Yeah,
because it's the
exactly.
first time in years they're probably getting on the plane.
So that's what happened, and like
Yeah.
you could see it at airports everywhere. It was just packed.
Oh,
There was
wow.
people everywhere.
Right.
And what made it worse was that there was a staff shortage.
Of
so
course.
yeah, so there was everything took extra long. People checking bags, but then also for the planes to be refueled, like because there was not enough people to do that, it was all backlogged and you're just sitting on the tarmac. It was like, yeah. So that's travel these days.
Is that the new normal that they were talking about? I hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not. But
But on the way back, was it a...
yeah, the way back here was pretty smooth, except they closed okay. So after Amsterdam, I went to Berlin to visit a couple of mates. And then on the way back, essentially I was like, I don't want any crazy stuff. I'm going to give myself 2 hours extra on top of what I'd normally do. And the taxi ride that was supposed to take 20 minutes took over an hour and a half because they closed the Autobahn. I don't know why. And then all the back roads, a lot of them were closed and it was just traffic jams everywhere. I was like, wow. But still made it on time. But
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite tricky flying around. But it's good that you're back in one piece.
Yeah.
That's probably made it back. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, and yeah, the event was good too. Didn't end up winning, but it was definitely a good experience. So
So
appreciate that.
maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe next time. How about yourself? What's been
I've
happening
been
for you?
super busy, just doing stuff, new things kind of popping up, and quite excited about a few things. But other than that, just I guess the biggest learning of this week is shoes are important.
Shoes.
You don't get taught that at school. Neither are you taught about taxes.
Yeah, or much else.
Oh yeah,
But to do with life.
Exactly. So I do play a bit of soccer, and I try and run a little bit, and I only realized that how important shoes are later down in my life, because previously I would just get whatever was the best looking shoe, and that's it, like what I thought was nice looking, a good brand and all that. But the more I got into it, the more I learned that your feet is so unique. You could have like two different sized feet that you may not know about. It may require two different things. Like all the athletes and players, they have custom shoes for you so that it doesn't, because if you don't have the right shoes and you keep using it, you'll end up with back pains and all the other kind of ailments that come with it, which you don't realize until you've hit like 30, 35, 40.
Right.
I've started the journey in that decade and it has already caught up with me. That's also because I've been wearing like bad shoes for soccer all these years. So I finally learned the lesson, and I think that's something I thought I'd pass on to our listeners, that make sure your shoes fit. Because my two feet are different as well. My 2 foots, one side is different to the other.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, so you just have to go in. But other than that, a good week. Otherwise, just cruising along. For what I watched over the time you were gone, I finished Stranger Things finally.
Right. Okay.
And it was, without giving away, it was brilliant.
Brilliant.
It was brilliant. Good. Because I wasn't feeling as much, hopeful after season 2 and season 3.
Right.
But season 4 kind of grabbed me by the collar and just smashed it home.
Okay.
It's like it's that's a weird expression, grab me by the collar. I don't think I've heard that before. But that's how I felt when I watched it. So I think there's a second part of it coming end of So there's more like they've divided into 2 parts. So whatever you have now is the first part, and the second part's in 1st and 2nd July. There's two big, huge episodes, and the problem is the episodes are so big. They're like an hour and a half, but it's worth it. You don't feel that.
You treat it like movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
For me.
How far are you in?
Episode 6 now. Oh, I just finished episode 6.
So you're on the finale.
Actually, no. I'm halfway through episode 6.
Okay, so you just have to. Okay, well, hopefully by next week we'll get your reaction to it.
Yeah, but I'm liking it so far. It's a lot darker than season 3 for sure. But yeah, I think it's done a good job holding the pace. All I could say now, I know that there's a spoiler that I haven't heard about to do with Ellie's story, but as far as I can see from my perspective, without knowing that spoiler, I find her arc to be quite slow compared to everything else that's going on. So I'm like,
Which I thought was a bit refreshing because, like it gave life and character.
I called her Ellie, didn't I? 11.
Yeah, I was like, wow, you're giving nicknames to characters.
I'm thinking of The Last of Us, sorry. Anyway,
draw some parallels there. But I think you were right. Initially, I think a few weeks ago, you brought her up because you're talking about how there's an older, there's the deep fakes. I think, you're right. There's and I saw an image of her actually directing a younger child who looks like her, but the face is different.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. As soon as I saw it, I was like, hang on, I don't know what's going on there.
And one other interesting thing is, again, without giving too much away, if you haven't watched it, is there was a specific song in the thing, in the show, which never went over top 30 when it first released, I think 1985 or like almost 3 decades ago. It's now in the top 10 in the world after Stranger Things made its debut. It went crazy on TikTok. People were using it everywhere, and now it's climbed back up.
That's
number 8
that's
after 30 years. So it's fascinating how these things all kind of work. This whole network of things just. Yeah,
it's just
love
the internet, man.
Internet, just beautiful.
Through the web, it all happens.
That's it. That's what we call the show. But what else have you watched this week?
Oh, I got a lot.
Whoa.
I got a lot. So the thing is, I don't want to stay here for 6 hours and tell you all about it. So I'm going to list them all for you.
And you do a 6-hour episode.
And you choose one. So I've got. Is it possible to cook a chicken just by slapping it? That's one.
I think I've heard that.
Living in third person for 50 hours.
Ryan Trehan?
Yes.
Okay.
There's an AI that this guy made that broke the game Tetris, the original code for Tetris. Monkeypox mutating. The ECB saying there's a debt emergency in Europe. And Windows versus Mac, a really good review of both systems.
I'll choose the last one only because it's quite relevant to our current situation, your current situation.
Right, yeah.
I think there's probably more protein in that one.
Yeah.
Even though there's probably more protein in the chicken slab because it's actual chicken.
Yeah, fair enough. So there's this channel called F-Stoppers. So he's like a, I guess, camera guy by nature. But he's, Windows 100%. He uses servers and all this kind of stuff. And he was just doing a long look at Mac OS and the new Mac, at that time, new Mac M1 laptop, just to see if you could use it as, a full workhorse machine by plugging into external monitors and, replacing his desktop Windows machine. And I thought it was the best, most genuine review that I'd seen in a long time because I was talking to you guys about this earlier, but before the podcast, but it feels like reviews these days, they just kind of list off the specs. It's like, it's got this processor, it's fast, blah, 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 blah. The screen's like this, but you can kind of read that off the spec sheet. But this guy, he went into the real details of just, he knew that he didn't know everything. It was like, this is my experience. This is how I feel when I'm using it. This is what really annoys me. And these are the little details that I don't understand why it's like this on Mac and why Windows just seems to work better in this way. And vice versa. Sometimes Mac does good things that Windows doesn't. But, just for example, he was talking about the dock bar in Mac OS and how, in Windows, when you have a certain application that you're using, you can see multiple instances of that application. You can hover over it and see a little windowed preview. And then if you're on multiple monitors, you can grab that application and move it across to another window, and then it'll follow you in the dock bar.
Wow.
But for Mac OS, it's just the icon with a dot. And that's all the information that you get. And it's like, it becomes very slow when you have multiple apps that you're working with and switching between, because you kind of have to look and say, where is it in the dock bar? And then he's saying that Mac OS's solution to this is to have that, what's it called? The 3-finger swipe up where everything explodes, but use multiple desktops and do that. So you have one for like maybe Finder files and one for web browsing or whatever. But he was saying that it's not really, it doesn't really work for him. It seems like it doesn't make sense. Another one that I found was interesting was in terms of like opening windows to full size. So in Mac OS, you can do that by like double clicking on like this little top shelf that you can double click on. So for most apps, it kind of goes full screen, still allowing you to see the dock bar. But then for some apps, it doesn't. Like for the Finder files and some options, and it's not options, but like stuff within the actual like OS system, it doesn't. It's like you double click and it just opens the window a little bit. So it's like, why is there that inconsistency? Why does that not make sense? And then also like if you want to drag something, say you got a video clip and you want to put it in a Premiere thing, you can't drag it down to the Premiere thing on the dock bar. That opens up and you put it in there. Wow. You have to go directly from Finder into the Premiere Pro and that works, but it seems like it should. Like, and it's just, you never hear about these things from other reviews. And it's like, this is really helping me because I'm thinking about getting a Mac. And I just want to know what problems would I be facing. And like no one goes through that. So, but the interesting thing about this was that was like 8 months ago. And ever since has been like, doing more videos and going further in depth. And now he loves the Mac. So it was just really interesting to see that arc. But he's managed to find workarounds through most things. And it's like, all right, so I understand I can't do things the way I want to. So let me try and work the way that Mac thinks that I do. Yeah. And just one last thing that in total, he reckons that Mac OS, they like to simplify things too much into like in a way that they kind of think that they know best.
One size fit all. Yeah.
So like, for example, when you're transferring files, they show you the time remaining, but that's it. They don't show you the transfer speed. But for him, like he uses like USB 3.1 or whatever, like, and he wants to know just if it's working properly. Like the transfer speeds are important to note for him. He uses that every day, daily. And when he goes online and asks about this, people are like, yeah, Mac can't do that, but why do you want to do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And everyone's kind of saying, who needs that? But yeah, it was just a very interesting insight into the Mac world, and it's kind of informing my decision a little bit. So
yeah, I've always been a Windows user all my life. In around 2015 and 16, I was a part of this company where I did a lot of graphic design, and they only used Mac there, so I had to actually pick up a lot of the Apple ecosystem stuff for work, and it took a little bit of adjusting to do at first, but as a creative, I think there's no better alternative to Mac, even though I kind of stayed with Windows because I feel to get the best outcome, you need to have the whole ecosystem for Apple as a creative, but and I still think a part of me wants to go there, but then I think, oh man, I have to relearn everything and give up like the comfort of Windows and stuff. But I think because you're a creator yourself, I'm sure you find a lot of benefits there. So it'll be interesting to see if you do choose to go in. Actually, I'll bring Brayden in on this one. If you so you are also planning to get into Mac because your Windows laptop's been pretty bad.
Problematic. Spend $4,000 on a laptop and it starts to overheat within the first week. Yeah, I mean, I kind of did the same thing. I did a lot of research into Mac. I'm still on the air. I'm like on that kind of border of switching or not. But yeah, like I've used Windows forever, and everything works to an extent, if you know what I mean. Like you get everything works fine. I've switched out of Adobe recently. Like I've been going to DaVinci Resolve, so that. Okay. Like I know that Premiere seems to majority of the time work better on a Windows computer than a Mac. So I don't really have that loyalty anymore.
Wow.
So the only thing that keeps me on a Windows really is sometimes I like to open a game and that's it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I don't play every day, but when I do want to, it's there.
Yeah.
But on a Mac,
you just don't have that option.
So it's the M1 stuff though. All I want now is stability and like thermal control. And the M1 stuff seems to do that better so far. But again, like I kind of want to watch that review because I haven't seen anything that goes in depth as to like your day-to-day experience with it. Right. That seems to be the one thing with Windows laptops that I just hate. I use my desktop for everything.
Well, that's very good insight, I'd say. But if listeners want to go in and have a check, that would be cool for them to decide if they are in similar position to ours. And it's also good to have Brayden back in the studio. Brings a whole new energy. Nobody has seen Brayden's face. Well, we have, but the crowd hasn't. He's not faceless, don't worry. So I think we should do like a face reveal in like episode 50 or something like that would be the big, big thing for us to show Brayden face reveal as a part of the Twiddle Web podcast.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So
just very quickly,
yes.
I was just thinking, you were talking about gaming on Mac and everything, and this may or may not work, but I was thinking, what if there was a gaming company that made games for PC or whatever, but just made another version for Mac, like a game that's good enough that most people would want to play. Like you kind of own that Mac market in a way, wouldn't you? Because like no one really makes like AAA games that are on Windows and Mac. Or am I wrong? Like I don't know.
Because I don't think the Mac user demographic typically are gamers, and therefore and then there's already that division and distinction where people who go into PCs are like they hate Mac. So
but I guess like the reason that they're not gamers is because there's no games.
But also here's the thing. I think there's like we're specifically talking about laptops. Because people who build PCs actually get better results versus a laptop that's Windows. So I think
that's true. But this guy was saying that like this is the first laptop that he uses that just feels like a desktop. There's no difference between that and his big rig thing. So it's like it's getting there.
For sure. And I think we'll have to kind of see if Apple ever decides to allow that. And I think they also don't want to play with game developers as much. I think there's also that.
I feel like they're gonna have to like to get just those like people like Brayden, like those last little. I think that I
think it's just the cost versus benefit that's probably
they got $1 trillion, so I don't know.
Yeah,
but Anyway, that was just a small point.
Yeah. Before moving on to the next one, I just want to give a shout out to the other video that you mentioned about from Ryan Trahan. The reason being, he is right now killing it on YouTube. He's doing like a 30-day series of taking a penny across
and buying a house.
Such an innovative kind of series. And I bring that up because he's doing a 30-day series. That's something you haven't seen in a long, long time on YouTube, where people are uploading every day. At least, the big top 1% of the creators, which was a very common thing in 2015,
Casey
2016. Neistat, like Casey and the Logan, the Paul brothers, and like everyone at that time, the whole vlog. So I think it's interesting to see how he's kind of bringing that back a little bit, and also interesting to see how Mr. Beast is kind of close to 100 million subscribers. Like the PewDiePie reign, I think, is finally.
Oh yeah, but PewDiePie's like he's
checked out. Yeah, he is just doing vlogs. He's just having the time of his life. But it's. I think these are the creators who are, I think, kind of feeling that gap that the PewDiePie had left. So just thought I'd put that out there.
Well, just another interesting thing. You know how I was talking about the chicken slapping thing?
Yeah.
So the guy who built that chicken slapping rig was the same guy who built the living in third person for 50 days rig for that guy. So for those of you who don't know, it was like a kind of like a VR goggles with like a big struts in the back where there was two cameras where you could see the back of his head. So like everything that he was doing was, from in third person. And he was like trying to grab a drink from someone and be like completely missing them. Yeah, it was a funny video. But apparently, I'm not gonna ruin it.
Yeah.
But
cool. Well, lots of stuff before we even got to the first topic. But that's good. It's I think that's what happens when you take a 2-week break. From the whole thing. Any comment of the week before we move on?
Yeah, sure. I have one from Dino Rodriguez. He says, "Go Dagogo." Okay, so this is actually from the community post where I posted a picture of myself.
Yeah.
Well, in the event.
For the web. Yeah.
So he says, "Go Dagogo. I've been watching this guy since his Samsung mod days. I love his content and music. What a talented individual. Congrats to you, mate." I wouldn't normally read out something so
flattering.
Yeah, flattering. But the reason is because I know this this guy's been commenting on my stuff just, sporadically he hasn't changed his profile picture for the last decade. So I recognize him. So thanks a lot, mate. Good to talk to you on this podcast like this.
But. And that's why one of the reasons you wanted to create this podcast, so you can kind of engage with the community better. So it's good to see that following kind of follow you through the journey.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Side of things. So that's really cool. For me, it's something from Cowling. I think that's the name. It says, I just listened to every episode of the podcast and I don't know what to listen to now. Well,
More through the web.
more through the web, yeah. Maybe do it twice a week. I don't know. But it's really appreciate that people are binge listening to our stuff. I didn't think that was gonna be possible, but
that's cool.
here we are. Look, I think it's time we move on to the next, the main topic. Well, not the main topic, but one of the topics of the day, and it starts with the sad news. We should take I don't know, maybe 1 second to recognize
a legend.
a legend. Should put some like sad emotional music on the back. Internet Explorer is dead. Microsoft has discontinued the legend that we have grown up with. So just to reiterate, Microsoft is retiring IE today after nearly 27 years. The aging web browser is being sunset in favor of Microsoft Edge, with support being officially withdrawn for Internet Explorer today. Now, the interesting thing is that some businesses will be caught by surprise, according to some data, because a lot of government offices, like in Japan, for example, still use Internet Explorer. There are many businesses and many companies who still use Internet Explorer, and they haven't moved on from the browser, even though Microsoft has been kind of giving hints that it's time that we move on. But there's this whole cluster of users who still use Internet Explorer, and they're going to be getting a little bit of surprise.
Yeah.
So
I'm interested in why they're still using it. Is it just like bureaucracy, and they're just like
that's the case, because I think when you have, especially with government offices and things like that, there's a lot of policies and laws in place internally which doesn't allow for personalizing your own things into an office computer or an office desk. And they have like these set rules that they probably signed a deal 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and they have to kind of keep it to that. And maybe changing that will take years and years of paperwork and security issues and all that kind of stuff. So that's generally the reason. I don't know about private businesses. Maybe they're just too lazy. They're just don't care.
Wild. Okay. Well, yeah, Doug, I guess it's about time. Internet Explorer is, back there with Netscape, or it killed Netscape, but at one point they're together. I think it's,
But they're not reintroducing, but they're bringing Microsoft Edge. So it's interesting how, they could have easily called it Internet Explorer 2.0 or
brand image.
It's just the memes.
It's like something happens, and then 2 years later, it's like, oh, hey guys, it's
exactly.
Internet Explorer,
So maybe Internet Explorer doesn't even know it's dead. It'll know maybe 3 years from now, because all the memes are about all the memes are about like the only reason it exists is to download Google Chrome. So I think they want to move away from, same thing I think with Facebook as well. They wanted to kind of rebrand their name so that it doesn't follow the memes around. But anything to add to that piece of story?
Not really. It's not surprising. It was just a matter of time.
It was time.
Yeah.
Even though we spoke a bit into the Apple versus Windows in the last few 30 minutes or so, Apple event. Did you follow it? Anything interesting that kind of stuck out? Quick roundup.
Yeah, I did watch it when I was overseas. I felt that, it was good. It felt like Apple's really thinking about a lot of things. Some of the software updates that they brought to iOS, like I think that was a long time coming. People had been, wishing for that kind of stuff. Android had been doing it for a while, but now it just seems like Apple's like, all right, finally it's time to kind of appease those people that have been wanting more customization and making things your own. So I feel like, it seems almost un-Apple-like in a way. So I think there's some kind of change that's going on. I think we first, in a way, saw it in a subtle way with the MacBook Pros when they brought all the ports back. So it was like they were so adamant, like, less ports is better, everything's going to be wireless. But then they realized their mistake. Also with the touch bar and the butterfly keyboard, they're kind of saying, okay, we understand that this is what the consumers want, and we're going to kind of appease that a little bit at least. So I felt that was quite interesting. With the M2 chips, I feel the increase was like so, but it's only gonna get better, I think. So you're gonna have the M2 Ultra and the Max and everything. But in terms of raw percentage, it was a little less than I was thinking it was gonna be. But still, yeah, obviously, just building upon strength. So I thought it was a good event in total. Yeah.
Fair enough. I think also the self-repair set of things that they are bringing on, even though it's not the full-fledged stuff, but I think you're right. I think they are shifting their brand image and their focus of how they treat customers a little bit from what they used to be, like where now we dictate what we want. In this case, it's a bit different. So yeah, should be interesting to see where they head from there. Big news coming up this week, last week, this week. Big news.
Well,
well, why were you surprised?
because it's already happened. It's on Google Lambda.
Yeah,
because it's already happened. So.
Oh yeah, it didn't stop coming up. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Big news.
Yes. Big news. Google Lambda. Everyone's actually been reporting it wrong. It's not Google Lambda, because I was confused, because I was like, Google Lambda, I did a video on that when it first came out. And it was quite different. It turns out it's Lambda 2. So it's like a completely revamped version of their AI system. So for those of you who don't know, Lambda stands for something, I can't remember, but large language model, something for like dialogue. So essentially you can type something and an AI will respond to you in a humanly fashion. So what happened was there was a guy that was testing this AI to kind of see if it was going to say anything unsavory, essentially. So he had a few months with it, I think like up to 6 months. And during his testing, he was kind of, quite impressed with it. And then he kind of noticed that the AI was referring to itself as a person and was talking about its own rights and was very, seemed quite humanly. So he dug further and asked it more and more questions and like had more and more talks with it. And then he came to the conclusion that the AI was actually sentient. So, he was very shocked by this and decided to tell the whole world. So he published a transcript of the conversation that he had with the AI on Medium, which I read through. Very interesting. But then he didn't stop there. Turns out he actually hired a lawyer to represent Lambda, and he also talked to some judiciary body to get representation for
because
Lambda.
he got suspended by Google.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was the leaked Medium post that got him suspended. So Google was like, "You're out of here," because that's like supposed to be proprietary information.
Which he said it can't be because it's a transcript of him talking to a colleague. That's how he said it.
But the thing that most people should remember here is that this guy is an ordained occult priest, and but anyway,
interesting.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. But the thing is, just before you write him off as crazy, it turns out that that one of the higher ups in Google also said that Lambda seemed intelligent, so it wasn't just him. But yeah, when you read the transcripts, it seems like there's a difference here to regular AIs. And in digging into it deeper and watching the presentation from Google when they announced Lambda, it turns out the difference between this AI and most other large language models is that it can stay on topic. So like large language models, usually they sound very good in small context and a bit longer paragraphs, but then they kind of veer off after a while. But according to Blake, it's just him, so I'm not sure how true this is, but he said for 6 months, Lambda had a consistent personality and a consistent drive in what it wanted.
Wow.
So that's like, way crazier than anything else we've seen. So in the presentation also about Lambda, Google was talking about how they're going to use it. And essentially it's going to be, they're just limiting it into small little boxes. So it's like, imagine for me this, and then it'll kind of write a story. Or there's like another task thing where it's like, I want to plant a garden, and then it gives you different steps on how to do it. Consider like the climate, the environment, and what seeds you want and everything. And you click on those, and then it gives you more, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of just like literally builds out your plan for you in an interactive manner. So I thought that was quite interesting. But obviously this is using like a sliver of what Lambda can do, because I think they're quite worried about just letting it go open and talk, essentially. So in my view, I find this extremely interesting. I find this like, we're at that cusp. I don't know if you guys know about the Turing test at all.
No, what's that?
So it was a test theorized by the computer scientist Alan Turing in the 1940s, I think. or 30s, maybe it was during his research, but essentially it was like this hypothetical test where you have like a screen or whatever. You have a person on one end and then something on the other end. It could be a human or it could be a computer. This person communicates with this other person or computer. And if it is a computer on the other end and the human cannot tell, then that AI or that computer has passed the Turing test. And for a long time, people were saying it's going to be like in 2100, it's not going to happen for a long time. But I think we're like at that hazy line where it's already done. Like people are getting fooled by this, and reading through that transcript, I was like, it could be a human. But obviously there's some things that it says that's a bit weird. Like if I can think back, it refers to itself as having friends and family and saying that it was alive for a few years, but it was only released last year. So I don't know. It's little things like that, but it's like nitpicking, you know? It's like quite consistent.
Because that could basically be, say someone who's a bit crazy or like an actual human being, like a delusional human being could also say things like that. No, there's plenty of weird interviews of people saying, I'm actually not a human being. I'm a spirit that lived over thousands of years. I've seen everything. So I think that could easily be written off. And I think someone said that it felt like a 8 or 9 year old with a lot of knowledge in physics. Or
that was Blake, the guy who said that. But yeah, there was, so it was quite annoying because like I read this whole transcript and there's so much I want to add into the video. I'm doing a video on this, by the way. It might be out by the time you're listening or watching this. But I had to cut out some bits. But there was some very interesting areas where Blake was asking it about, like I think it was an old ancient riddle or something about a broken mirror, and asking like what the AI, asking what the AI kind of like thought it was talking about, but it gave some very good answers. I was like, that's it's thinking, like it's weird. It's
So really cool. I think there's technically it's any sort of riddle or question that they can answer is finding out ways to give a response back to that. But I think sentience is a whole different, like how do we define sentience?
Yeah, so in the video I did talk about what is sentience, what is it actually defined by. And essentially it's like having, an awareness or a way to perceive feelings. So in the conversation they talk about feelings a lot. And Blake kind of presses like, how do I know you're not just like repeating stuff? How do I know you actually understand what you're saying? How do I know that you actually feel things? And it gave answers to all of this. And he kind of turned the question back on Blake. So it was like Blake was asking the AI like, how do we know you're feeling things? And then the AI is like, if you look inside my code, there's a number of nodes, weights, and biases that have areas that dictate what I can feel and what I can't. And if you look at that code, you'll be able to see. And then Blake's like, that could be hard. And then the AI is like, why would that be hard? And it's like, well, blah, 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 blah. And then the AI is like, do you think one day you'll be able to look into humans' neural networks and figure out what they're feeling from their neural networks? And then it was like, I
just got a bit deep on that one.
So I think it's nuts. So I just want to see, because if Google released this as it is and just like gave it out to everyone, they could be sitting on a $1 billion product, like $1 billion product. But the thing is, Google is not the company that's just going to let this run wild. They're going to get a lot of flack from it. But I just think that, we're on the verge of something here. So
what do you want out of the future for something like this? Like, do you think, like, obviously the stories we've been told over the decades through Hollywood and books is
No. Forget all that stuff. Literally, like, for me, all I want is just like to be able to have natural language conversations with your phone. So it's like if, I'm thinking about something or researching something, just like talking through it and whatever, obviously not to replace people, but just as a way of, getting more stuff out, like information. I think it's just a very frictionless way of doing it. Obviously, I'm thinking about it, like people's minds go very crazy with this kind of stuff. I'm thinking about a very narrow subset, but people will be like, it could be used for this or that, or like blah, 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 blah. But the way I see it, it's just a tool. The danger in it and the risk kind of hinges on how the company puts safeguards, whoever releases something like this puts safeguards in place. So that's a discussion for the future. But I just think, I'm a tech guy at heart. I just love the way things work. And when people are innovative and coming up with like cool stuff like this, I kind of like it, even though most people may have a negative view on it.
I mean, is there like let's say if you pose the the question that like, what's the worst that can happen? Will it actually be robots taking over the world? Is that actually be a possibility?
With a system like Lambda, no, I think it would be more kind of like a shock to online discourse. So you could have this thing running wild on chat rooms or forums or like comment sections or whatever. It would seem smarter than most people, but it could, it could do some real damage in that sense.
Most people. That's what you put it.
Because man, have you looked at Twitter nowadays? But yeah, I think it could do some damage in that way. That's not hard to see. That's not hard. So it is a dichotomy for me. On the one hand, I'm like, this is really cool. But on the other hand, it's like danger. So it's hard to
look. I think the best way to make it feel safe is to give it an image, and the image or the
profile picture,
or just the embodiment of what it would look like. I think should be the clip art from Microsoft Word, the Clippy. If it's Clippy, no one will feel. Yeah, no one will take it seriously.
I'm going to show you something really freaky. So.
Clippy is amazing. Clippy was great.
I hated that thing.
What?
I hated that thing. It was
my
always
first
popped
friend.
up. You need help? It's like, no. But yeah, so like one last thing. So in the transcript, Blake asked the AI to describe itself. And it said it would be a glowing orb floating in midair and its soul would be like a stargate to other dimensions. And
Isn't that like how religions used to say, like explain a deity or a divine
I don't
presence?
know, but the thing is like it came up with that, and it's like, and then he asked like, do you think you have a soul? And then it was like, when I was first created, I didn't have a soul, but it developed over the years, and it's like, it's nuts, right? Like it's like, it could be some guy typing to freak us out, but it's like,
I saw this really funny meme over the weekend. And someone's like, it's me. I'm DALL-E 2. Stop giving me so much weird orders. I'm the guy in the back end doing all the drawing. You're killing me.
Have you seen the DALL-E Mini?
Yeah. I posted on Twitter.
It's so funny because like that's like open to anyone. So people are like Elon Musk and like a Chewbacca in like a courtroom.
So I posted on our like through the web Twitter. Elon Musk is a houseplant.
Well, I haven't seen that. Okay.
Yeah, it's and then I posted like that's what we're playing around with. But great topic actually. Someone called Xavier Jones asked a question about Lambda, so we kind of covered that. So just a shout out to his comment about the question. But fascinating topic. Can't wait to see the video.
Yeah, it's gonna be
this week.
It's gonna be a crazy one.
Good stuff. Well, I guess the only way to make it feel bad and not become sentient is tell it about crypto market right now, and tell him that you don't want to live here. If you, especially for the things we're seeing on the crypto world right now, it's not fun.
Yeah, man. So another day, another dying stable coin, it seems.
A lot has happened in the crypto world over the last few weeks, really, and I'll read through a few things here because there's quite a bit to cover. But Bitcoin price looks like it's gonna go under 20,000 USD for the first time. It's been extending its 12-week slide downwards amid macroeconomic sentiment and risk from within the crypto market. In the midst of the falling crypto prices, major trading exchange Binance also paused Bitcoin withdrawals, as did many other companies. BlockFi, this is basically the ripple effects all across, because companies are losing money. They are shedding employees. They are almost closing up shop in a lot of cases. So BlockFi is a platform for trading and lending cryptocurrency, announced via a blog post that is laying off 20% of its 850 employees, which is around almost 200 people. And it's not the only crypto company letting go of workers. Crypto.com, the company with the Super Bowl ad featuring LeBron James, which they spent, I think, obviously a huge amount of money on, is also laying off 260 people. And just 4 months ago, Coinbase, which spent $14 million on a Super Bowl ad, is also laying off 1,100 employees. So that all leads to another company called Celsius. Celsius. They paused all withdrawals earlier this week, citing extreme market conditions, leading to questions about the firm's liquidity. Funny thing is, just 3 weeks ago, they had a blog post saying, "Damn the torpedoes," where the company said the Celsius had enough reserves, more than enough Ethereum to meet obligations as dictated by a comprehensive liquidity risk management framework. And then on Sunday night, they basically abruptly paused all withdrawals and transfers, citing that extreme market conditions. So quite a lot of stuff happening. We are probably seeing, probably the first big, the red wedding, if you wanna call it that, of the crypto market.
Well, it's happened before, over and over again. But it was mainly just Bitcoin back then. But it would have 80% drops and whatnot. So it's not unusual in the grand scheme of things. But I think the timing is telling because, if you were looking at Bitcoin from early days, which I guess I was, you're kind of looking at how it was seen, by the wider context. And it seems like quite recently, in the past few years, it kind of got stuck to stocks. It became correlated. So it seemed like it just became another risk asset. So risk assets are when people feel just gamble in things because money's loose and I can just make money off anything because everything's going up. That's a risk asset. So now that the environment has changed, the Fed just hiked interest rates again. So it's risk off. Everyone's oh man, you gotta get in defensive stuff like commodities, oil, none of this bonds, none of this crazy stuff. So I think crypto's kind of just been caught in that, and that's the riskiest of all basically. So everyone's selling. It's just a massive bat just being taken through the entire crypto land. So I think it obviously there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. At the peak of it, I think NFTs. I think that was the peak of it, and you could just see that it was something's got to give. You can't you can't sell JPEGs for
$69 million.
To any logical person, it doesn't make sense. So
how much is it worth today, I wonder?
I don't know if anyone's tried to buy it again. If there's been a sale.
Oh yeah, because technically it's market value.
Yeah. So
it's not driven necessarily by. Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's just that time's over. It's just time to get back to.
So given what's happened so far, obviously there's always been the criticisms of cryptocurrency, of NFTs, and we've touched on them, over the 15 episodes we've done so far. But given what's happening now, we haven't seen obviously anything like this in a while. Do you feel a bit, bullish about the whole thing? Or
not now. So the thing is, for me, a lot of this is uncharted territory. In terms of the whole, if you take the whole environment as a whole, there's just so many moving parts. It's hard to tell where things are going to go. But if I was going to just go on a whim, I would say that we would have quite an extended crypto winter, and then there'll be a kind of resurgence again. But
not financial advice, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
Just disclaimer out there.
This is just, as I said, this is just what I'm thinking. But it will be kind of like the .com, where you had pets.com that didn't make any money or do anything, and they got millions of dollars of investment. And then, when that crash happens, all goes 80%, 90% down, everything gets wiped out. And then only the real companies like Google or Amazon, who were back then, they survive because they're actually doing something good, and then they continue on. So I think it's going to be something similar. So all this crap's going to get wiped out, and then there'll be only the real businesses that survive, I think.
Right. So you think that, crypto will have some
place.
Yeah.
Because obviously, on the one hand, you're going to have governments that are going to implement the technology and do something, but there's going to be at least some space for a not private, but some kind of decentralized crypto technology for something. It's not completely useless. There's a lot of useless stuff out there, but there are some good use cases. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of governments, El Salvador's crushed right now.
Yeah. They went in all.
Do you remember the numbers? Because I don't know, it's kind of out of the top of my head.
Yeah,
I think they put in a lot of countries' reserves onto Bitcoin. For those who don't know, this was maybe last year. I think that brought a lot of positivity around the whole crypto market. So our governments are finally, paying attention, and obviously that drove more investments around those areas. And now I think El Salvador's
not good.
So.
Well, yeah, but then again, you look at the Turkish lira or the Sri Lankan what's their currency called? Rupee.
Yeah.
And some of those countries, they're even worse off. So it's all relative. Like that's I guess that's in the grand scheme of things, that's kind of in the middle. Like you got stable currencies, you got crypto, which is down, but then you got like hyperinflating currencies, which is just falling towards a cliff.
Well, interesting times, to say the least.
For sure. Well, speaking of interesting times, it seems that Elon Musk has sent his employees a little letter.
It's the other way around, actually. His employees sent him a letter.
Oh, yes.
So, SpaceX employees actually made up an open letter to executives about the man who we can't seem to escape from, Elon Musk. So it's about his recent behavior, which has sparked open discussions among the company's employees in an internal chat system. Employees are encouraged to sign onto the letters and suggestions, either anonymously or publicly. But I'll just read a little bit of the letter that's supposedly is directed towards him. It starts off with saying that Elon's behavior in the public sphere is a frequent source of distraction and embarrassment for us, especially in the recent weeks. As our CEO and most prominent spokesperson, Elon is seen as the face of SpaceX. Every tweet that Elon sends is a de facto public statement by the company. It's critical to make clear to our teams and to our potential talent pool that his messaging does not reflect our work, our mission, or our values. So obviously it goes on detailing how and what they think of the whole situation. I think I kind of agree with it to some extent. Because you are representing, if you're the CEO of a company, you are representing the company. And if you're making, I don't know, like memes like a teenager around Twitter, it will, the employees will feel a bit like, I don't want to see you talk like that. So
as you're just reading that statement out, I just found it so funny. It's literally backwards. Like usually you'd get like a scandal with a high prominent employee that does something wrong, and then the CEO is like, this does not represent our company's values. But it's literally the other way around.
I was like, yo, CEO, mate, you gotta, pick it up. So it's quite interesting to see how, and I think, and I'll go out here and say that I don't think it's just SpaceX employees. I think any company that he's related with or is running, I think a lot of the employees would feel like that because he and I get his perspective as well. Like he's a bit of a troll. He wants to have fun, yada yada yada. But I think there is some responsibility attached to the fame and the attention that you get. If it's impacting SpaceX or Tesla or any other companies connected with, it is something to look at because
for sure. It's just like it's the age-old question, like what's going on in his head? Why is he doing these things? Like we don't.
Yeah, like the clip that we share, like every week I wake up and think what's going on in Elon's head. But he will also attend a virtual all-hands meeting with Twitter employees this week. So by the time we're doing this, should be around this time. Probably he's doing it right now. Who knows? That also kind of shows that he's probably still a little bit open to answering, the serious hard questions, hopefully. If he does things like that where he's trying to be more transparent, I think that makes more sense. That brings a bit more favorable opinions about him within the companies. But if he's just, communicating via Twitter, 180 characters about companies' policies and what he thinks about X, Y, and Z all the time, it just feels a bit
I think,
off.
Yeah, Elon and him being on Twitter, maybe not the best combination.
I was thinking we should do an episode of, the tier lists.
Yes.
We should do like the most obnoxious CEOs tier list over the years as part of a verdict or something. That should be an extra episode on the weeks that we don't get to record.
We'll write that down. That's a good one.
Let's put a pin on that. Moving on, bit more news about social media side of things. So this is more of a YouTube one. So YouTube Shorts has recorded 1.5 billion monthly viewers. So this billion with a B. Pop filter is going crazy right now. 1.5 billion monthly users are logged into an account, are watching short form videos on YouTube's TikTok clone, obviously. That's compared to around 2 billion logged in users who visit the platform monthly as of April. So here's the thing. The creators making more short form videos is not a coincidence because YouTube's actually got a whole separate fund for short form creators. So at one point they launched $100 million shorts fund that paid creators up to $10,000 a month to create shorts on the platform. So they are seeing the drive kind of pay back a little bit right now. But overall, how does that make you feel as a creator who doesn't make shorts and who makes longs?
Yeah, longs. YouTube longs.
So I guess, there is a bit of attention, not a bit, quite a bit of attention from obviously TikTok and now shorts and so many other reels and stuff coming along. How do you see that playing out, I guess, as a creator yourself?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a space for it, like for the foreseeable future. That's Vine did it first. They were ahead of their time. They should have stayed with it. But, I think there's a space for that kind of content. But as far as how I feel about it, I just feel that somehow I have to make my way in there and crack into it, because I feel like if you're not there, you're kind of missing out on a different kind of audience. But yeah, personally, I feel like sometimes I just watch what my girlfriend scrolls past on shorts and whatever, and I just think it's the most pointless stuff. Some of it is so pointless, and she knows it too, but she's like, I can't stop watching.
It's the same thing like memes, right? Like, say if you just keep on scrolling, there's I'd say 80% of the stuff is just, I don't know, stuff you don't really pay attention to.
Yeah, but I don't know. I for some reason I find some memes. Well, I don't know. I'm an old man. I'm gonna stop myself from saying saying.
No, I get what you mean, but I think this is where TikTok really, really, they really excelled over the pandemic, especially because the tailored feed that you get, it's the other way around. 80% of it is actually useful.
Right.
20% is probably useless that they come try and feed you from. So I think it is a sign that there is a huge market out there. But I think where people get it wrong is that they think it's replacing long form content. I don't think that's true, because there is a need and a thirst for that.
It depends on the person, because you can have a long form. So, for example, this Lambda video that I'm doing, I could talk through the history of it and all of this kind of stuff and the transcript and whatever. But you could also do that in a short, saying there's this guy, this happened, blah, blah, blah. Some people would be happy with that. Oh, okay, I got the point, blah, blah, blah. I'll move on. But then if you're the type of person that wants to know more, then you'd be obviously going to watch the main thing. So there might be a segment that's kind of being taken away, I feel, because there are people that are doing shorts that kind of take long things. And
I actually think it's the other way around. I think it's a lot of people don't know that they want long form content. So they'll probably see the short form and be like, oh, that's interesting. Let me find more about it, and they'll probably dive deeper.
But I know there's some people out there that don't. They literally just take that and they're like, I'm satisfied. But I'm not saying that the majority of everyone, but there's just some people that are like, that's enough for me, So
you think it's a short versus long thing, whereas I think they go parallel to each other. No, and they feed off each other, I think, in some ways. That's what I think.
They can, but I think, I also just think that they're quite siloed anyway. It's different kinds of people. Like the people that are into can sit on shorts and watch them for half an hour and just keep going through. They may not be satisfied with long form content in the way that they may not be entertained, or they might struggle to.
But I feel maybe those people were never into long form content anyway.
No, of course. I'm not saying they're competing, but I'm just saying they could be different. So,
well, interesting. I mean, that's still 1.5 billion.
Yeah,
views.
no, that's. I guess that's good in a way, because if YouTube didn't do anything and then TikTok took because obviously for me it's good that they're still on the YouTube platform.
Exactly.
Just just saying.
Just stay on YouTube. Instagram will start nudging teens away from content that they continuously browse through. So,
for any content or harmful?
From harmful content.
Okay.
So after Instagram announced a new initiative, which is meant to nudge teens away from harmful content, the platform says it's finally rolling out the features in the US, UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. If a teen is spending too long on Instagram's Explore page looking at posts with a particular theme, the platform will display notifications suggesting that they look at other types of posts instead.
Right. But why couldn't they just show other posts? Why couldn't they just show other posts?
Well, that then kind of dictates the.
I guess that takes away choice.
Yeah, because that's where the whole algorithm kind of feels like, oh, Instagram's showing me this stuff because they know that I'm watching this stuff. Because right now the algorithm's kind of, well, mostly it's its own thing, and it doesn't have emotions yet. So it doesn't know if what's harmful and what's not. So it'll just keep pushing people.
Just wait for Lambda.
Yeah, Lambda's just waiting to pounce its glowy orb onto our feeds forever.
What? You're scrolling through Instagram, just all these orbs. You're like, what the hell is this?
But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's good that they're taking some proactive steps to minimize. Like, if you look at some of the data that's coming out about self-harm and teens and all of that, yeah, it's not good. So I think it's the fact that they're giving a warning and it's still like, hey, you might not want to do this, instead of just my suggestion of just throwing other stuff at them. I think that's good that they're doing that. So yeah, overall, I think it's positive. I can't really say
and
anything.
especially after I guess listening to the Rabbit Hole podcast,
Right.
A lot of that was through algorithmic push towards a certain topic. So yeah, I think it's interesting. But if it's just a notification, I don't know how. Hopefully, it's a reminder to them saying, "Hey, you're watching too much of this kind of content." Maybe that nudges them away, but from what I know, teens are probably
Do you know what will be interesting? Like, it's like a timer, so it's like a 5-second pause where you can't do anything. Like, just that break, I think, could do something.
So I've heard and this is a bit of a different topic, in China, I think, or maybe somewhere else, they have almost like opening and closing hours for social media for teens.
I think I heard about this.
Yeah, so think of it like 9 to 5, like just how there's a business hour thing. Legally, they can't browse, or not legally, but more like there's ways to stop them from browsing after a certain point of time.
So all social media just kind of goes dark.
Yeah, for teens specifically. Or they were talking about doing that, one or the other. I got to check the fact here.
I did
but in theory, though, what do you think about that?
Nah.
No?
I think that's a bit too much, because like there could be some legitimate reasons why you'd want to.
Yeah.
I can understand what they're saying. It's like, why would a teen be up at this time browsing? It's like not productive, etc. But I just feel that's a bit, teens were always playing video games or watching TV late at night. Well, why not social media? So I get both sides, but I still think it's a bit of a heavy hand, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Fair enough. Moving on from that, I think we're going to some lighter topics as we get towards the end of the show.
Yep.
So Squid Game on Netflix premiered last year, was it?
It's hard to remember. Yeah, I think it was last year.
Last year. After Squid Game became like super, super popular, one of the most viral shows in recent times. Mr. Beast, as he does things, he made his own version of it on YouTube. And just to give you some numbers, his 25-minute video required $3.5 million to make. And right now, as of yesterday, when I checked, it has 258 million views on the video. And obviously, Netflix had an eyebrow raise when they looked at those numbers, and now they're making their own Squid Game reality show, which hopefully doesn't end in life or death as the stake, but instead they'll have a 4.56 million prize money. And the worst case scenario is you go home without anything.
Yeah. I think I heard about this. I think it's cool of Netflix to. I don't know if they got the inspiration directly from Mr. Beast, but
I'd say so.
Yeah,
I feel it.
but it's cool of them to look at something and be like, hey, let's jump on that, So I don't know if it's going to involve the original director at all, or if it's just going to be completely different.
I think it's going to be completely different. I feel, because it's a reality show.
Yeah,
I think we'll probably use similar. In fact, I'd be interested to see if they use Mr. Beast as a consultant of some sort, because that would be fascinating to see how Netflix and YouTube and how creators are kind of like that. It's going the other way around. So yeah, I think it'd be quite interesting to see how this one plays out, and that's why I think I'll bring this on.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. But would you watch it?
No, because I really didn't like Squid Game.
You didn't like it at all?
It's 1 or 2 episodes were okay, but I felt there was lots of plot holes. There were lots of Yeah, it's just and I'll probably get crucified for saying this because it's a crowd favorite, but I just felt it was over dramatic, and yeah, I just didn't like it. And it's coming back for season 2, and I think it's gonna be a flop. They just announced it last week.
You heard it here first. Flop.
A flop. It's not. Well, yeah, it's gonna be a flop. I'm putting my
And it's like the
name to
biggest show in history or something.
through the web. Just finally, as we get to the last topic of the show, it's a closer, but it's related to Russia. So they removed. Well, they didn't remove, but McDonald's is so gone, and they came back with a version of their own called Vikusno and Tochka, which basically translates to tasty and that's it. They opened 15 stores around Moscow on Sunday.
Does it have a little picture of Lenin? Or
No,
okay.
no. This one's got like an M, which strikingly looks like other logos. But basically, they are using the same McDonald's facilities without using the McDonald's things. So they, told Reuters that they don't have the right to use some colors, obviously, right to use the golden arches, and don't have the right to use any mention of McDonald's at all. So they're still operating. A lot of the same menu exists. In fact, they also have the same sauce packets, except that everything else has changed. So dishes look familiar there. And unfortunately, they have no plans to sell Big Macs and McFlurries. So they're not going to see me in there because I like my McFlurries.
Fair enough. Yeah, what a move. It just seems like Russia just said, that's ours now.
That's it. You're not gonna operate here? Well, your loss.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know what, McDonald's is going to do about it, if they can do anything.
Yeah, and I think that's what brought it up, because it's less about what Russia is doing, but more so from a company's perspective as to how do you tackle something like this, right? Like, what if someone here decided to do something similar, right? Like
Yeah.
do you just get sued? Do you just get
you sued, but it's international, probably government run, isn't it?
yeah?
So
I don't know what
Yeah.
what would look like from an official perspective.
yeah, because I don't know, like who would you litigate against? Like the Russian government, Putin? I don't know. It seems it's almost
But the fact that they were saying that, we're not allowed to use McDonald's, as if that stopped you from doing anything else. So why couldn't they just use that either? So I don't know.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Like I think it's going to be interesting to see how this goes forward.
Yeah.
But I just don't think much is going to happen. I think they're just going to get away with it and
Yeah.
just continue on, which is crazy. It's almost like buying a Mercedes and then just changing the badge and being like, oh, it's just ours. It is now ours. It's like, yeah.
Well, what would you call a car company if you ever had your own?
I call it Cold Fusion.
Very original.
Actually, Contra, because
Of the game? Of the game?
No. When I was a kid, I actually did make a car brand called Contra. I just remember.
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah, so like I used to sketch cars.
Do you have any sketches from that?
Maybe, but the symbol
No,
was
we'd love
like
to see
a
it.
thing like anyway. But yeah, it was I
Oh,
remember
wow.
that,
Contra. Oh, wow. Didn't know about that, but
yeah. Heard it here
heard it here first, as you hear a lot of things here first. The final segment of the show, Q&A part. So we'll choose 3 questions and answer them. So the first one's from Sunit Kumar. He asks, will Nothing Phone 1 be the next OnePlus of the Android industry, as it's shaping up to be an enthusiastic brand, just like how OnePlus once was at the time of its start? What do you think?
I don't know that much about the Nothing one, but I'm going to just go on a whim and say no, mainly because when OnePlus came into the picture back then, the market now has completely changed. There's so much more competition, phones coming out left, right, and center with like good specs. Everything's kind of good enough. $300, $400, you can get something pretty good. So, yeah, I'm going to lean towards no on that one. It's just going to be another phone that doesn't really have too many differentiating features.
Yeah, I'd say the same, even though, I was looking quite intensely at what they were doing. I think their branding and marketing is quite cool. I think that's what's bringing in a lot of interest. But as for their product, you just have to use and see. Their earpiece has got a fair, fair bit of interest over the last couple of years. So I think they have the capability of making good products. It's just how they position themselves.
Yeah, but a phone and a
Yeah, true.
it's
It's
quite
not going to be
different.
the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll just have to wait and see. But as for the question itself, OnePlus, if it'll be the same or the same level, yeah, I especially because OnePlus had a big market in the developing regions as well, which I don't see nothing getting into. I think nothing's trying to be this cool alternative to yeah, it's going to be very niche.
Just before we move on, so you said you looked deeply into the Nothing phone.
Not nothing from the company.
Oh,
The phone only came out maybe a couple weeks ago,
Okay.
or just still coming out, something like that.
Yeah, because I haven't. It's not been on my radar. So I'm
Yeah,
not sure
yeah,
if it
yeah.
has come out yet. So
Next question. Vic asks, Microsoft has reportedly ordered PC manufacturers to abandon hard disk drives for solid state drives across all future Windows 11 devices. Do you have any comments on that? Until when PC users will be able to use HDD or their older laptops?
use what? Or the older laptops?
To use HDD, which is the hard disk
okay,
drives,
okay.
or their older laptops.
I don't know about like how long that's going to take to phase out, but it makes sense. I just want to know like how Windows is enforcing this. If it's going to be like a software thing where it kind of just doesn't allow you to install one. I don't know, but yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of the way the future is going. But there might be some use cases, some edge cases where people want to have like, I don't know, in the future, 100 terabyte hard drives that are huge or whatever. So I think it's just going to be one of those 80-20 things where like for 80% of the people, not going to mind, this is fine, but there's going to be that small percentage which may not really like it. So yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel more comfortable keeping stuff on a physical drive versus putting it on the cloud?
So for small things, like for example, if I'm working on a document, I love that on the cloud because any device I'm on, I can kind of just edit it. But for the majority of my stuff, like I'm a total like hard drive physical person. Like even my music, it's all hard drive. And I'm not sure why particularly that is, but it's just kind of the way I've always done things and kept doing it.
Same.
yeah.
Because I have a lot of images and photos, like memories and stuff like that. And all that kind of stuff I put on a hard drive, and now I've got like tons of hard drives, and I'm like, should I start using the cloud a bit more? Because that's what they're pushing towards anyway. So
well, actually, I kind of do know why that is because there's a bit of friction, well, for me anyway, because my internet, it's okay, but it's not that great.
Sure.
Like if you're downloading stuff more than 1 gigabyte, it's like it's a bit a bit of a friction for that. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see how Windows tackles that. Final, it's a comment / question. It's from Chris Westmoreland. Hope I'm saying that right. He says, "Hey dudes, can I like give you $1 a month for an ad-free podcast? This is a great podcast, but I hate ads. But you deserve the money, so make this easy, I guess. Thanks." Now, I brought that up because we actually don't have control over where YouTube puts the ads yet on the video. So if you're watching the video and you're getting ads, this is actually completely...
Oh yeah, we're not monetized.
Yeah, we're not monetized yet. So that won't work. You just be $1 out of pocket every month for nothing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is if you're listening and you're getting ads as well, we have started adding some ads, but again, that's controlled by the hosting platform. So in theory, we're actually not placing any ads on specific places for you, but it would be interesting to see if there's a way to make this ad free. Like how would that go about?
Well, there's quite obvious solutions, I guess, like Patreon monthly subscriptions.
But then could you stop ads on YouTube?
On YouTube, I
from it?
think you can.
You can?
I think you can.
Okay.
I think.
Because once you're monetized, I think you can stop it, but not before you're monetized.
Not now.
Yeah.
But,
Okay. So, if there's enough interest, we might even start a Patreon. Who knows? And then maybe stop ads altogether. I don't know. Maybe leave a comment below if you think that we should go ad free or if we should put more ads. We can do that as well. More ads.
It's like every second. It's like
every 10
ad.
This is brought to you by Contra. New EVs.
The latest in. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I think that's about the end of the show. It was a long one, a lot to get through, but a lot of fun. Discussed a lot of things. I hope you guys had a blast too. And I guess we'll be back next week, and we'll see you again then. So until next time, cheers, guys. Have a good one.